Hello everyone, this is Heroes Trivia, and today is the launch of Humankind's first DLC, the Culture of Africa pack, and there will be 6 new cultures added into the game. So let's first take a look at these 6 new African cultures spread across all 6 eras, as we'll be doing an overview of all the cultures. Starting in the ancient era, we have the Bantu. Historically, the Bantu people are credited with their massive migration within the African continent well over 6,000 years ago, which we credit today as the Bantu expansion. So it is only fitting that the Bantu culture in Humankind is designed as an expansionist culture. And to reinforce this idea of a peaceful expansion to match their historical background, the legacy trait of harmonious amalgamation provides 2 points of influence per number of adjacent empires on territories, meaning that the more neighbors you have, the more influence you will earn. This can be seen as an added incentive to aggressively expand in the early game, but it does carry some risk as your newfound neighbors might not be so friendly. In addition to their legacy trait, the emblematic district for the Bantu is the Mapia Fields, which is an outpost replacement that provides 10 food for adjacent cities. This effect is pretty straightforward, so not much to add here, but obviously the drawback with emblematic outpost districts is that once you have attached them or advancing to the next era, their effects disappear completely and does not carry over. Lastly, the unique unit for the Bantu is the Bangadi Pioneers, which is a scout replacement that manages to retain the Neolithic Nomad trait, which allow it to continue to grow and gain free units through gathering food from fighting or ransacking. In addition to that, it also comes with a new Pioneer trait, which allow these units to gather Pioneer curiosities as a way to create new units as well. But with a combat strength of only 13, amassing these units is not the recipe for war, but rather they become a tool for rapid expansion. First, as expansionist affinity culture, the Bantu has the unique affinity ability to trespass and convert other empires' outposts to your own. Then on top of this shared affinity effect, once you have 4 Bangadi pioneers in an army, they can use their lives to settle new outposts without using influence, which can help overcome the increasing influence cost of your rapid expansion should you want to expand far away from your starting city. So all in all, the Bantu culture is designed as a powerful early game land-grabbing faction with a multitude of mechanics designed to help you achieve this goal. Now, whether you can develop or defend your massive empire is an entirely different question, but at the very least, your numerous outposts will provide that 10 food bonus to your cities nearby to help with early game population growth, and the potential for Bangadi pioneers to multiply through food gathering and curiosity gathering also allows for an easy path for 3 expansionist stars and 3 agrarian stars in the ancient era. Then moving on to the classical era, we have the Garamantes. Historically, the Garamantes inhabited the Sahara Desert region of Africa and were the culture that witnessed the desertification of this region firsthand almost 3,000 years ago. But instead of migrating away, the Garamantes stayed and became adept at farming in the desert, which we can see in their game design of being agrarian affinity culture. Their legacy trait, Desert in Bloom, will provide the main plazas of their cities with additional 5 points of influence if that city is growing or basically have positive food. To aid in that effort, their unique emblematic district is the Fragora, which count as a farmer's quarter and can be placed anywhere within your territory as it specializes in providing bonus food based on adjacent terrain types. And if you look at all the bonuses, it's 2 food per sterile terrain and 1 food per rocky or stone field. So in essence, the Fragora has the ability to turn otherwise barren tiles into decent food production. But there are obvious drawbacks, as the Fragora will only exploit food, and since you're incentivized to place this around sterile terrains, rocky field, and stone field, these tiles will lose their innate industry production. But overall, this is an interesting and thematic emblematic district that is best used far away from your current districts as a nice food boost to your cities on tiles that you would otherwise not exploit. But if you thought turning desert into food is the Garamantes' most powerful trick, then you will be mistaken, as we are finally going to see some power creep in terms of DLC unit with the Javelin Riders. At 27 combat strength and 3 range, the Javelin Rider replaces the Horseman for the Garamantes. Now, of course, the Horseman unit has 26 combat strength and has no range, but that is not why Javelin Riders are broken, as being ranged, they will still suffer the close quarter combat when under attack, but my concern about these units are twofold. First, their production cost is only 90 industry, which is half that of the Horseman. And second, they only require 1 horse resource, while the Horseman requires 2. Both of these facts goes against everything they tried to fix in the last major patch, where all unit production costs were aligned with their generic replacement and horse requirements were increased for all units. So either the DLC team never talked to the balance team or Amplitude just want to add some power creep to help sell the DLC. But regardless, I can definitely see these Javelin Riders being nerfed in the future as they are going to be a problem in the classical era. Next, moving on to the medieval era, we have the Swahili, which is a merchant affinity culture, giving nods to their vast trade networks in East Africa, spanning the Indian Ocean. Their legacy trait, Coastal Haven, provides 10 points of additional stability on harbors, and then 10 more stability points for each adjacent regular district. Now these are going to be the regular market district, for example, which will give additional adjacency to harbor on land. And speaking of harbors, the unique emblematic district for the Swahili will be the harbor district called the Bandari, where you will gain 3 money for each unique type of resource available. Now, depending on the size of your map, you can have up to 20 types of luxury resources and 8 types of strategic resources, so the maximum money gained from the Bandari is 84. In addition to money for each adjacent coastal water, you will also be gaining 2 points of influence. But this also means you will lose out on this bonus if you build this district in a lake, which does limit the Bandari a bit, especially if you compare it to the Nost Harbor district for the Norsemen, which is another medieval era culture that gives a unique harbor. And that one provides 50 extra money per ramsack per Nost, which in my opinion can easily outpace the return on the Bandari just in terms of monetary returns. But if you want to play as a peaceful trade empire, then the Bandari is a great second harbor option in the medieval era. Lastly, the unique unit for the Swahili is the Matip, which is a naval transport unit that allows for instant disembarking and embarking, making it the best option for quick island hopping in a coastal heavy map. The effect is actually pretty nice, but as a naval transport unit, there isn't too much to add here in terms of analysis. Then moving on to the early modern era, we have the Maasai, which historically is a pastoral culture inhabiting modern-day Kenya and Tanzania. Therefore, in Humankind, they will also be representing the agrarian affinity, with a legacy trait called pastoral prowess, which reduces all population food consumption by 25%. Now, although this effect has nothing to do with raising livestock, it is still quite powerful and scales extremely well into the late game, with higher populations consuming more food per population. In terms of emblematic districts, we have the Enkang, which is a farmer's quarter that you can place anywhere in your territory, and based on how many adjacent tiles are being exploited, you will gain 5 food for each tile. Now, like the previous agrarian emblematic district, the Fragora, both of these districts can be placed anywhere within your territory, but both have the weakness of not providing any farmer slot in the city. So I'm not high on these districts, as the income maxes out at providing 30 food when surrounded by 6 other tiles with some innate food production, as this district will only exploit food. Therefore, if adjacent tile does not have food, it will not be considered as exploited until you place some sort of district on it or adjacent to it that will cause one of the resources to be actually exploited, thus giving you that 5 food bonus. Lastly, the unique unit for the Maasai is the Maasai Morons, which is a range unit with the added bonus of dealing bonus combat strength against damaged targets. However, the early modern era is when the range units transition to gunners with arquebusiers and musketeers. So given how the Maasai Morons only have 2 range and 43 base combat strength, the greatest strength comes from just their cheap production costs of 485, which is going to be half of those gunner units, and the fact that they do not require any strategic resources to produce. Then moving on to the industrial era, we have the Ethiopians, who are well known historically for their militarization and ability to resist European colonialism, and thus they are a militaristic affinity culture in Humankind. Their legacy trait, the military modernization, gives 5 points of science to all garrison district, which is a nice little bonus, as more science is always helpful. It should also come as no surprise that their emblematic district, the Amba, is a garrison that can only be placed on mountain tiles. Now this is going to be a bit problematic in my opinion, as you cannot actually place units on mountain tiles, so the bonus effect of the district fortification are only good against bombardments, and all the bonus effects such as combat strength and restrictive movement for enemy armies are only going to be applied on adjacent tiles, and the most important thing, you can't use the Amba as a spawn location for new recruits. And if you don't have a mountain tile in your territory, you will also be missing out on this emblematic district. Lastly, the Oromo Cavalry is the Ethiopians' unique unit. At 49 combat strength, this Dragoon replacement is actually much stronger than standard counterpart, but with experienced replacing move and fire as one of the traits, the Oromo Cavalry might lose out some mobility in combat in favor of doubling the combat strength bonuses you receive from each level of veterancy. And I'm not sure how this trade-off works for range cavalry because sometimes firing and then moving away to open up space for other units is crucial to the effectiveness of Dragoon units, so you might be losing out a bit there. But it is nice to get a lot more combat strength as well, so I'm not sure how things will even out here. Then finally, moving on to the contemporary era, we have the Nigerians, who are known for their massive population and oil production. So Humankind has made them an agrarian affinity culture with a legacy trait called glorious overabundance to give each of the farmers that you have 1 point of industry. Then their emblematic district, the oil refinery, is probably one of the most interesting ones in the game, as it will provide no exploitations, but instead create a new oil deposit at a coastal river delta, or basically where a river exits into the sea within your territory at the cost of pollution and stability loss. Obviously, the river delta requirement will limit the number of placement for this district, but the opportunity to create oil resources out of thin air is definitely an exciting one, as many late game units require a large number of oil resources to construct. Then for unique units, Nigerians have the MRAP vehicles, which stand for Mine Resistant Ambush Protection Vehicles, and it replaces the generic APC, or the Armored Personnel Carrier. Compared to its standard counterpart, it not only has slightly more combat strength at 65 versus 62, it also requires less strategic resources to build, which is kind of counterintuitive in terms of design, since the emblematic district for Nigerians basically give them more oil resource, and the APC requires 3 oil resource, but requiring less resource is never a bad thing, so no need to complain here. And that's going to do it for our overview of all 6 new African cultures being added into the game with the new DLC for Humankind. In addition to adding these 6 cultures, the Cultures of Africa pack will also be adding 4 new natural wonders and 1 new cultural wonder, all related to the continent of Africa, as well as a huge patch for all players. Speaking of the patch note, I will be reviewing that over the weekend and providing a rundown video of all the important changes next Monday, which is also when I expect to start a new African cultures only run using these 6 new cultures. So if you're still undecided about the new DLC or just want to see how these cultures play out, definitely come and check that out next week. And hopefully you enjoyed this DLC culture overview, and I will see you all next time. Bye!